Hello, everyone. Where is everyone joining us today from?
Hey,
Hello from Portugal, Boston. What other places do we have today? Okay, so a lot of hi.
nice.
So, how's the week been so far for you, Diego?
Yeah, it's been great. Extremely busy, but great. Yeah, excited to be here.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, maybe let's start up the session and then others can also keep on joining us in the meanwhile. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the ADPList and Webflow original series, where we help you bring your imagination to reality and together build websites in a completely visual canvas with no code at all. So, after deleting Google, changing prices of a couple of Apple products, learning the fundamentals of Webflow from interface elements, layout, designing, animations, components, CMS and dynamic content, collections, and editor, and by the way, if any of this sounds unfamiliar to you, I would strongly recommend to revisit the session recordings. And here we are today in the phase two of the series, where we are taking a deep dive into real life applications of Webflow. Starting off from building a portfolio, then transitioning from Figma to Webflow, and using Webflow to create e commerce websites. So, for today's session, we have Diego with us. And Diego is a brand designer and a Webflow developer with a decade long experience. He is a front end designer and has an extreme specialist design experience. He specializes in storytelling using skills like branding, design, and motion to drive the user's attention to right places and create more engaging and memorable experiences. So, Diego is actually going to take us in the journey of how he created his own portfolio in 3 days and ended up getting the most prestigious awards out there. So, over to Diego, and here we go.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. Uh, nice to meet you all. Nice to be here. And let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. Just give me a second. And okay, here we are. So, yes, for today's session, going to talk about building a portfolio in Webflow. And yes, I'm going to talk about my own portfolio. I'll build it in 3 days. But let's talk about a few other things, important things, before we dive into that. So before going into the main topic of the presentation, the session, again, like a little bit about me. I'm a brand designer and Webflow developer. I have front end experience. I've been doing front end stuff from the past 10 years, more or less, some other creative stuff as well. And I'm a full time freelancer. And you can find me on, especially on Twitter. I also have a YouTube channel, or you can explore my latest works on my public profile on Webflow. So let's get into it. Why build a portfolio in Webflow? Well, if you see all the previous sessions, you already understand the power of Webflow as a creative tool. So you understand like all the basics of Webflow, how to build a website, how to use all the features, how powerful and how this can make you like free. Like it gives you a lot of creative freedom, right? So for me, there's three main reasons for building your portfolio in Webflow today. The first one is that it's easy to update. So we are creative people like designers, developers, illustrators, whatever. We know how hard it is to create a project for ourselves. Like designing and building a website for a client, let's do it. But for us, that can wait, right? No, except in not. You can't wait. If you want to have a successful freelance career, a good portfolio, a well-built portfolio that it's easy to manage is a fundamental piece, a fundamental marketing piece for you. So with Webflow, we already know that you can use things like the CMS collections. You can create multiple CMS collections. You can add different kinds of custom fields to make it easy to manage. You can have collection lists across your website with advanced filtering. You can also have components if you don't want to use a CMS collection, but also want to have a way to easily update a few sections of your website. So it's easy to update. So it makes our life building a portfolio a lot easier if you understand. And later, I'm going to show how I use the CMS collection across multiple sections of my portfolio website in a smart way. Okay. The next thing is that it gives you creative freedom. So you can create a lot of creative experiences, like very good experiences with Webflow out of the box. So you have, I usually say that Webflow for me is like a visual code editor because you're writing code, but visually. So it's more than a page builder. Have granular control over all the things you have on your website. And if you want to use code, well, go for it. You can. So you're free to use whatever you want and build the best website possible. And there's also my favorite feature, Webflow, obviously, the interactions feature that allows you to create very engaging experiences like interactions, animations out of the box in Webflow without having to touch a single line of code. And the last thing is that it's simple and secure to have a Webflow website. I did websites from scratch before I was a Webflow developer. I did a lot of WordPress work as well. And well, to build a website, you have to deal with hosting. You have to find the best hosting service to host your website. You need to deal with SSL certificates. You need to handle security. Performance sometimes is hard to achieve a good performance, so it's complicated, right? But with Webflow, all you have to do is build your website and hit publish. With that, you already have a staging link that you can just use if you want to use the way it is. That's it. That's all I have to do. But you can also grab a hosting plan, and out of the box, you have security because you can't hack a Webflow website. There's no database. There's no server, no backend to people to try to exploit. It's secure. You have an SSL certificate out of the box for you. You don't have to deal with that. Have backups. So if you mess up your website, Webflow automatically generates backups for you. So if you want to revert something, you can, or you can even go back to a previous version, grab a component that you deleted, and move it back to your current version of website. So it's very good. And well, also performance out of the box, it's very good. So if you just build a simple page in Webflow and go to the page speed and size and Lighthouse and try it out, you will see that you have great performance out of the box, and you don't have to spend several hours tinkering with configurations to make it performant. That's great. And you can also go a step forward if you have specific sections on a website that you want to put behind a password protection. That's easy, and out of the box Webflow, you can have that kind of feature. And I use that as well. I'm going to show later how I use that. And again, yeah, last year, I have to have a portfolio website. I started having some work, and I needed a place to show my latest work, so I could use that as a way to show that I'm a professional, that I do good stuff, and to sell my work, right? So I spent a couple months thinking, how can I do that? How can I make the perfect website on Webflow? Except that you don't have to get it perfect. All you have to do is do it. And it needs to be good enough. But Webflow allows you to make it better than that and faster. So I try it, and I was able to design and build my own portfolio website in just 3 days. Yes, 3 days to just create a portfolio website. That's not a lot, right? So I'm going to show later how I created that portfolio website. Now, before we see the portfolio, let's try to think about what makes a great portfolio. What should I include in my portfolio? For me, there's 5 things you need to have on your portfolio to make it stand out and be an important piece of marketing for you as a freelancer. The first thing and the most important thing is the focus should be on your work. Like if you just create a simple static page with great presentation of your work and just an email, that's good enough because it's your work that's going to sell your services as a freelancer. So put your work up in front. You can create a crazy website with lots of interactions, but if you don't have your work standing out on the website, that won't work. So that's number one. Number two, it's who you are. Like people see your work, now they need to understand who you are. What is the person? What is the face behind the business? And so you tell your story, you tell a little bit about your background, what are the clients you worked before, and this gives them more confidence. Like it's a real person. It helps them feel connected to you. That's a powerful personal brand strategy. Number three is your offer. So, what are you offering for potential leads? They seen your work, they know who you are. Now they need to understand what can they get from you. So, listing your services, and even if you want to go a step further and talk about pricing on your portfolio website, go for it. But it's important to highlight the services you want to work and to deliver to your clients. Otherwise, you might have a chance to get bad leads. Number four, social proof, a powerful thing, social proof. So every time you finish a work on a client for a client, try to get a testimonial. And once you have a few testimonials, put it on your website because that's an important strategy to show authority and show confidence. Like if they want to see and want to talk with the people that worked with you before to understand what was their experience, it's there. Like they know who they are, they know what they have to say about you. So social proof is very powerful. And the last thing, clear next steps. So they see your work, they know who you are, they know what are you offering. They have more confidence because they see real people that worked with you before. And so how do they get started? So it all depends. Like you can go from a simple email to you can have WhatsApp, you can have a form, you can have any kind of automations. On my website, I use a few links called to actions pointing to a form on Calendly, so they can provide me some info upfront and book a time at the same time. So there's tons of options, but it's important for you to have clear next steps, like a clear contact section for them to understand what they should do to move forward with their projects, right? So apart from these five things, you can also do more stuff with your portfolio. For example, proposals. So I see a lot of people sending proposals like as a PDF or as like just an email. You can do that, but I think that a great strategy is actually creating a landing page for your proposals. That's what I do, and I have all my proposals inside my website and Webflow. I'm gonna show that later. You can sell resources. So, for example, if you're an illustrator or an icon designer, and if you want to explore some passive income revenue streams, well, your portfolio is the best place to actually sell those assets, right? So, it's a perfect place for you to have that kind of thing. And create content. So, why create content? Well, if you want to have great SEO, if you want to show your thoughts that allows people to understand that you're really a professional and you know what you're talking about, and like just giving more confidence for potential leads to hire you. You can create, for example, create a blog section inside your portfolio and add your thoughts there. It's a great place to do that, right? And again, like I said, your portfolio is your main marketing asset. It's the best one because it shows your work, shows who you are, what you have to offer, all in one place. So it's very important to have a good portfolio. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. But before I show mine, I want to talk about 5 Webflow portfolios that I love and I think are great examples of what you can do with Webflow. Let's start with the portfolio from my friend Ilya. Ilya is a great designer, and he's an amazing person, developer, and I love his portfolio for several reasons. First, it has an amazing design and has smooth interactions. So he goes really deep into the details of his portfolio with all those interactions. So the whole experience feels very engaging. It has a specific section focusing on his work and also on provided services. So he has, like I said, he's pointing the work out in front. He's being clear about the services he provides. It has a specific section for social proof as well, which looks great, and an archive section, which is very fun to explore. If you go to his portfolio and go to archives, you can just drag the screen and explore all the other projects that he has there. It's very fun to explore. The second one is from Grace Walker. So Grace, she beat me on the fast game, and she did her portfolio in 1 day. I did mine in 3 days, but she did hers in just 1 day. But yet she created a one-page portfolio that is clean and yet has a beautiful design. And it's a portfolio that is straight to the point. When you go to her portfolio, the first thing you see is her name, what she does, and contact information. So it's very straight to the point when it comes down to the services and contact information. She also has a huge focus on the project. So it's like a card-based design, and she has huge cards showing beautiful screenshots of her projects. So it's like, again, it's putting the work up in front. And she's also leveraging all the material that she has in terms of interviews and presentations to showing authority on the field. So she knows what she's talking about because she had appearances in all of those places, right? Next one is also from a friend of mine, Carl Reynolds, also known as the Flow Man, superhero. I love Kari's website because it's a perfect example of how you can leverage Webflow in a creative way. It's a way to create a simple yet very creative narrative. So all his portfolio, everything, all the illustrations, the design, the interactions, and the content itself, it's all around the theme of like being a superhero. So it's amazing and very fun to explore. He has a great and unique uses of social proof that I haven't seen before. Like, it's not like a carousel of testimonials. It's laid out as a comic book page where you see like frames with characters and the testimonials. It's very fun. Also, some fun interactions that set the right tone of voice for his portfolio in a dedicated section for projects as well. Very fun portfolio. This one I like a lot, and it's a great example of like being less is more, right? Davide Macioli's portfolio. Sorry if this is not the right way to pronounce it, but I love his portfolio. I love it because it's ultra minimalistic portfolio. All you see when you go to his page is a list of projects, his name, his position, and the minimalistic menu on the right side. That's all. So the work, this is the best example of putting the work in front and center with nothing else to get on the way. So it's very simple, but yet if you go to the page and mouse over the projects, there's some interactions that make it a little bit engaging. They're more interesting. And when you click on the project pages are also very simple with just a list of screenshots for the projects, small description, but it gets the job so well done that like it's perfect. For me, it's perfect. And also a contact page that has everything the client needs to know for the next steps. And the last one from my friend Ben Zielinski. I think that Ben did a great job creating a clean design with great focus on the content. He has a lot of content on his website. He shows information about availability. That's also something that you can do in a portfolio. For example, if you're booked for the month, but you're taking projects for the next month, you can add somewhere on your portfolio your availability. Or if you're not taking any projects right now, you can just close availability and have that information there. He also has a good way to present the projects with the screenshots, and you mouse over and see something different. I like it. And he's also leveraging the CMS to create a blog section where he adds his thoughts, experiments. So it's a great way, again, like I said, to produce content, and it's good for SEO. It's good for like leveraging the image authority and all of that. So these are 5 Webflow projects that I love, 5 portfolios. And now, yes, let's open the black box, or how I build my portfolio in 3 days. So I'm going to show my build, how it's laid out, and a few details about how it works. And then I'll show more details about other sections like the proposals. Okay, so let me go here. So if you haven't seen my portfolio yet, let me hide this. Haven't seen my portfolio website yet, this is it. It's a 1-page portfolio. And let me refresh here. So this is the first screen with my name, what I do, a small paragraph, explain a little bit more about my unique value proposition. I have here my social media channels, an easy let's talk button here, so it's easy to get in touch with me, and a button for seeing more about myself. And once you start scrolling, have this cool interaction that looks like it's a card-based design, and all the cards are like moving to the back with some depth of field, right? And then I put, again, like I said, your work should be up in front. So my work here is up in front. So all projects are full screen cards where we have like the name of the client, what I did for them, a small description. I have a creative way to show a screenshot of the project. The background itself matches the project. And then a link to live review. They can click here and just see the project in real time. It's live, right? So we have this interaction, then we have some other interactions inside the card itself as you move, some parallax. So all of this to create an engaging experience and make the user want to keep scrolling and keep exploring the website, right? So more project here. And then at the end, one of my favorite sections of this website, the footer, which is a footer, but it's not at the same time. Well, it's the last section of my portfolio, but it has a lot of stuff to be called a footer, right? So it's a grid-based design with some cards. So it's all based on the ideas of cards, right? And I have like a small bio section explaining a little bit more about my background. I have a testimonial section here where you can see like what other people have to say about me. And I have my offer here. So I have 3 packages that I offer. Just Webflow development, designer Webflow, or the full package, which also includes branding work. And I also go a step forward. I explain like what is my initial price for this, my minimum price for these types of packages, right? And they can just click on one of these call to actions. That will send them to Calendly, a form on Calendly to collect all the information from me previously, and they can already book time with me. And then big call to action with the next steps. Just send me a message. If you don't want to go over this and just want to start a conversation, you also have here. And yes, we have all these little animations to make it the whole experience more engaging, right? So let's take a look at the inside. All right, so here we are on the designer on Webflow, and this is my build, my portfolio website build. And it's fairly simple, to be honest. So I have here page wrapper, then we have 3 sections here inside. We have the top section, which is this full width section, the introduction section. Then I have a call to action list. So all the projects you see on my profile website comes from the CMS collection for projects. So as soon as I start scrolling, you see that the cards are kind of stacking on top of each other, right? It's not the same effect that we've seen here because these are done with interactions, but I use a mix of tricks here to make that effect. So the first thing is obviously position sticky. So all of these cards have position sticky. Let's open this structure here. So we have the project list item, which has a specific height. So this is like the container for the sticky card. Then another element inside, which is the card itself, that will be sticky on the screen. And then I use a combination of tricks like negative margin. So with negative margin, we can make them stack on top of each other. It'll be in a CMS collection. And I use a little snippet of code. Let me see if it's right here. Yes, right here. So if you have all those cards stacked on top of each other, at some point, you will see a card that is going behind, but it's not clickable, which is not ideal. So to bypass that, I use a small snippet of code to add pointer events none to the container of the card. That makes the mouse ignore that as a layer. It gives you like a way to control the layers with CSS, even if they are on different positions. So it's a powerful small snippet, right? And then the last section is the about section or footer. Again, it's very simple, and it's just like a grid. Like so, Webflow, it's really easy to use Webflow to like create sections with Flexbox and with grid. Grid is complicated to write grid rules with CSS, but Webflow makes it very easy. All I have to do is select here display grid, and then I just created the grid myself with some gap, and it's basic. It's just like four columns and 3 rows. That's all. And then I just distributed all these cards manually. You can just have them span automatically, but I just use the manual grid positioning to distribute them across the grid, right? Then we have all of these small assets here, like this playing. Here we're playing this arrow, the arrow at the top, this arrow right here. All of these small things are Lottie files, and Webflow has support for Lottie files out of the box. So all you have to do is, if you have the Lottie file, just throw it here, and you can even control the Lottie files with interactions. So if you don't want them to play in a loop, you can just use mouse over or on scroll. So it gives you like another level of creativity with Webflow. And then this is the testimonial section, which is also using some code for slider. I like the Swiper.js. It's a great library for sliders in general. So I'm using this. And if I go here to the page and click here on settings and scroll down to the custom code section, then you will see that I have some custom code here. And then here we have the code for the testimonials, right? I also have some extra stuff for like the text animations and all that, but it's all small stuff. Like you don't even need that kind of stuff. I just like to add this as another layer of interaction and to make it a little bit more engaging as an experience, right? But that's it. And then if we want to look at the interaction that makes the cards like going to the back with depth of field, it's very, very simple. So I have the interaction here on the item, the container with the sticky card. So it's not the card itself, it's on the container for the CMS item called project scroll. And all I have here is I'm using just 3 things: scale, opacity, and the blur filter. That's all. So as you scroll, you should see the card going to the back. You can see here playing real time, going to the back. So it's just scaling down. It's not going to the back. It's just scaling down, decreasing the opacity of the card, and then using the blur filter to have this depth of field effect. So it's very simple, right? That's it. That's how I build my portfolio website. And then, like I said before, a good thing, one other thing you can do with your own portfolio website is have your proposals inside the website. Before going to proposals, like this is my configuration for the CMS. So I have here 4 CMS collections: 1, project categories; 2, projects; 3, testimonials; and 4, clients. So testimonials is pretty straightforward. It's what we see here, right? So just a collection of testimonials right here. Then I have the project categories, which is also used here inside the cards. So the cards itself are a collection, is the projects collection. And then inside of it, we have the project categories because it's connected. Let's open the project CMS to take a look. So here's one of my latest projects. This is how I configure my CMS for projects. We have the name, we have a custom fields for project description, which is what we see here on the card, right? It's right here. Then I have a few image fields. I have one playing screenshot that I'm going to show in a minute where I use it. Then I have another field for the background of the cards, for mobile and desktop, one for the 3D screenshot thing, the year. This is where I connect the project category CMS item with the projects CMS collection and add those items. A few checkboxes here, toggles to decide if I want to include this project in my pitch or proposal, or if I want to include at the homepage, because not all projects are on the homepage, just a few selected. A number field to decide the order of the projects on the homepage. Then just two color fields, because everything inside the car is themed. So the background matches the project and the color as well. So the color of the text and the color of the button should match the project. As we can see here, for example, it's light gray and white. This one is blue and white, right? This is like this gold and white. So that's how I use those fields. And in clients, like I have a section that I show clients, not on the portfolio page, but on my proposals. And my proposals is just like a folder with static pages. I could even go further and turn my proposals into a CMS collection, but there's a few sections that I like to customize. So I just kept this as a standard page that I can just easily clone Webflow. And like I spent 5 minutes customizing a proposal page to send to a client and make it very personalized. So this is my proposal template. I don't usually show this, but here we are. And for example, I have here the first section, which is similar to my first section on my homepage portfolio, where I add like the client name, a small message about like the project and why we should work together. Then again, I have a section about myself, so telling about your experience, your background. I have a photo of myself so they can see the face behind the business. Here I use the CMS collection for a client, so I have logos and links for all these clients. They can just click here and see who worked with me recently. I have here the section of recent projects, so I'm reusing the same collection list from my homepage here, but this case I just use the static screenshots to list all the projects I did recently. Then testimonials, again, reusing a collection, a CMS collection that I had used before. And then the other sections that I usually customize the message right here with like what is included on this offer, my process, usually to design and build Webflow website, price, FAQ section, and like a next step section. So it's a static template. Half of it is powered by CMS collections, so it's easy to manage this content. And I spent 5 minutes cloning this and personalizing to the client. One of the reasons why I have this as a static template is because of the password feature. All proposals are behind a password, so only the client has access to the proposal. And I just send the link to this landing page, this proposal landing page, and the password so they can just see the proposal and let me know what I think. And I think that's it. So that's how I build my portfolio. So let's get back here. And yes, so main takeaways, the key takeaways from this presentation, so things to keep in mind, is that first, Webflow has all the right tools and features to make your website stand out and be easy to manage. Like I said, like half of my proposal is managed with CMS collections. The section with projects all done by CMS collections. So it's easier for me to manage. It's easy for me to update, like with the editor or the designer view. The CMS and interactions, again, are your friends, so leverage that as much as you can to make your life easier managing the website, the portfolio website, and also to make the project stand out a little bit. So use interactions to make it stand out. Don't abuse interactions, but do just enough to make the experience a little bit more engaging. Again, your work should be the main piece of your portfolio. So on my portfolio and on the other 5 examples I showed, you see that the projects are up in front. They're the main part of the portfolios. So keep that in mind. And again, make it easy for potential customers to know what you do and where to find you. Another important pieces of content to have on your portfolio. And that's it. So thanks for coming. Thanks for watching my presentation here. I hope this was useful and inspiring for you. And I can't wait to see what you do for your own portfolio on Webflow. Thank you. And feel free to ask questions now.
Thanks a lot, Diego. So let's start picking up the questions from the Q&A. Others, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the Q&A box, and we will start taking them live now. So let's start from the first one. So what do you recommend to the beginners who only have, like, let's say, no more than two projects? So how should they display it in their portfolio?
Well, if you have two projects, you already have some projects. So don't wait until you have several projects to create a portfolio. Just go forward and put those two projects in the best way possible in terms of presentation on your website. That should be good enough to get started. But if you want to have more, I usually recommend around 3 to 5 projects. So if you don't have enough projects for your portfolio, what I always recommend is if you don't have clients, don't have projects, just create fake projects, create passion projects. So, for example, pick a theme that you like to talk about, create a landing page for that, or create a fake client or a fake product, create a project for that as well. So be creative, explore things that you're passionate about, and create a project around that. And then put in your portfolio. There's no shame on showing fake projects, because what matters at the end is not that it's if it's a real client or not. What matters is that you're showing your skills. So you created that project from the ground, and it's showing all the things you can do. So that's why I usually recommend.
So the next one is, did you start up with a template for your own portfolio, or did you start building it up from scratch?
Well, mine was from scratch. Like, since I'm a designer, brand designer, and Webflow developer, I need to show my skills, and that means that also my portfolio needs to show my skills designing. So I haven't started with the template. I just had some thoughts in mind, some ideas. I explored a little bit of inspiration before I designed. And then I decided to go with something simple and yet with good typography, with good usage of colors, etc., to make it stand out. And then I just built the whole thing from scratch. But yes, there's a lot of good templates on the Webflow marketplace. If you don't want to spend a lot of time designing, you can just grab a good template in Webflow and customize it to have a good portfolio. What matters is that again, like I said, your work should be up in front, and you have to make a good job at presenting the work.
Okay, so the next one is, how do we basically add on animations or high definition images without making it too heavy to load up?
Well, like I said, if animations and interactions, don't abuse that. Usually, in terms of motion, when you're adding motion, when you're adding all those interactions on the website, I usually say that all animations and all interactions must have a purpose. So don't animate something just because you can or just because you think it will be fun. Animate with purpose. So usually the purpose could be like pointing to a specific section of the website, could be making a specific section or a specific piece of text or image stand out and be memorable. Or sometimes, yes, it just adds some interactions to add a level of delight on the whole experience. But don't just do things just because you can, or abuse. Just try to start with subtle animations and interactions, and then explore all the other sections of the website that you can think could use more interactions to stand out a little bit more, and you think it's important to stand out.
Okay, so the next one is, did you start by first designing with Figma, or did you directly start up your portfolio in Webflow?
Yeah, I think that I started exploring some visual compositions on Figma first, but I haven't designed the full portfolio design on Figma. I just explored a few sections. And then once I was satisfied with the idea, and I knew what I had in mind, like I knew that I wanted to have like a grid of cards at the footer, and I knew that I wanted to have like full sections for all the projects. Then I just jumped into Webflow and did the rest of the designs there, because you can design on Figma. That's also recommended. Usually, it's better to start with designing on Figma or other prototyping software and then jump into Webflow. But if you feel like, if you can, and if it's simple, the project's simple, you can just start designing straight into Webflow. There's nothing wrong with that. My mentor, by the way, which is also a brand designer and Webflow developer, he doesn't touch Figma. He does all of his designs straight into Webflow, and he's also a template designer. And he is amazing on all the projects he does. So yeah, mine I explored just a few sections, but you don't have to follow the standard process. Just do whatever works best for you.
Okay. So the next one is, why did you use manual positioning on your photo grid and how did you keep it responsive?
Yeah, I use manual position because, like I said, we have a grid of 4 by 3, right? Some of the cars are on specific cells inside that grid, and some they need to expand across multiple rows and columns. I could use automatic position, but I like to have more granular control over where things are on specific section, specific sizes. So, for example, like you said, how do you keep it responsive? Webflow, it's easy when you are on tablet or on mobile view. You can just edit the grid and override the grid template. So, for example, for desktop, I have 4 columns, and for mobile, I have just one color and like automatic rows, right? And then using manual position, I can choose what goes where on desktop and at the same time on tablet and at the same time on mobile. So the manual positioning with grid gives you more granular control over position in general.
Okay. So the next one is much more towards the fundamental side in terms of if you can please explain what a card is.
Oh yeah, well, card is just like it's kind of an abstract concept to explain what are those boxes. It's all those the boxes you see, for example, at the footer. I have multiple boxes with different colors. You can call it box, you can call it card, but it's kind of a standard to call those things card because they look like a card, right? But a box at the same time. So there's no special reason to call it a card, but everyone does it.
Okay. And Ivan is asking if one can find anywhere these pre-written HTML code to help with interactions, or how far could one go without any coding?
Well, like I said, yes, you can go really, really, really far with Webflow out of the box without touching a single line of code. That's the beauty of Webflow. You don't need to know how to code to build a good website with good interactions. So usually I use custom code first because I'm comfortable writing custom code, and second because there's still some small limitations to what Webflow does. And when you deal with something that could be dynamic, for example, let's say a string of text, a headline that needs to animate every single character in a staggered way. But that string of text could change. Like if you have a client managing that website, they can change that. Well, if the text doesn't change, you could even like take all of the characters and wrap them around a span and use that to animate with interactions. But if the client changes the text, it will mess up everything. So in that use case, yes, you could use some custom code. For example, use GSAP and splitting the text, so you can make this automatically without messing up with the functionality of easily changing the text on Webflow itself. But yeah, you can do a lot of stuff out of the box Webflow interactions. Lottie file is also something that gives you another level of interactivity without having to touch code. But if you want to explore code, yes, there's a lot of places out there. For example, CodePen. There's a lot of great examples of CodePen website with like small examples of interactions. You can just like copy the CSS and the JavaScript code and paste on your Webflow website. Because, well, you have the embedded element in Webflow. You can have space to add code to the header or the footer, so you can do that really well. So CodePen is a great place to find great snippets and with interesting interactions if you want to dive into code for Webflow. But I wouldn't do that at first. I would try to go as far as I can with Webflow or with interactions, and that's it.
Okay. Emmanuel is asking if you can please share how you got the codes you use in your portfolio, and is there any way to add pre-written codes on a free account?
Yeah, as far as I know, I think you. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can on a free account. I think the embedded element on Webflow it's only available for paid accounts. But well, in terms of how I got the codes that I'm using in my portfolio, well, I'm using code in my portfolio for. Uh, Let me just take a look again. But I think I'm using code for mainly three things. One's for animating the letters at some places, right? Yeah, that's it. Then the one for testimonials, well, I'm using Swiper.js. And then the last one is actually using a library called Lenny's to do the smooth scrolling on the page. So it's the whole scrolling is more subtle, it's more smooth in general. So I'm using Lenny's for that. Well, in all of these code snippets are either things that I written myself because I know how to code, or I just explored documentation. So Swiper.js has a great documentation website. You can go there, you can go to the getting started section. They will give you examples of code snippets, like how you structure your slider, what is the code you need to include inside a script tag to make the slider work. Lenny's is also the same thing. If you go to the Lenny's website, they have a GitHub. On GitHub, they have documentation. So yes, if you want to explore all this code here, you need to read documentation, take the snippets, and add into Workflow website and test things out until it works. Oh, it's Lenny's. Just I. Let me just type here on the chat.
Okay, so we will just be taking up last couple of questions before we wrap up. And the next one is from Brett. I like how you send online template proposals to save time. Was that done with CMS as well?
Oh yeah. So I could make those proposals as a CMS template. You definitely can, but all depends on how your proposal is structured. And I like to customize my proposals a little bit for every single client. So customize the message. Sometimes I remove a few sections. I change the copy of those sections. And at the same time, every proposal has a unique password. If you use the CMS collection right now, Webflow, you can't have unique passwords for each one of these CMS items. So that's one of the reasons why I chose to make them as static pages. But like half of the proposal template is powered by CMS collection. So the part where I show clients, projects, and testimonials is all coming from the CMS collection. And all I do is it's the static page. I just clone the page, personalize the text, the message, the sections, and then I just add a custom password to that page. So that's how I do mine. But if you don't mind like not having password and you don't think you're going to customize that much your proposal, then like it's perfectly doable. A proposal powered by the CMS collection.
Okay, so the next one is from Sarah, and the question is: do you create the header and navigation bar inside a grid or as a separate section?
Header and nav bar. Well, you are talking about my portfolio because my portfolio actually doesn't have a, well, it has on the first card, but it's not a persistent navigation and header bar. But yes, the way we structure things, the way I structure things on my portfolio, I have the big card for the top section, right? And then the section at the top with my name and the Let's Talk button, which you could consider as the header and navigation. It's just like another div with Flexbox, and then the Flexbox item is configured to spread the elements and have and add automatically space between. That's how I configure that top section. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, so the next one is: can we find pre-built interactions online, or do we have to create all on our own? And this also applies to
Oh,
libraries
that's
for effects on scroll, hover, or anything else.
Oh yeah, that's a great question, and well, there's no better place for you to find this than the on Webflow website. Webflow has a specific section called "Made in Webflow," and you will find there like Made in Webflow is a collection of the best projects that are showcased by Webflow developers. So if you build a website, you can showcase there, you can publish that, and it's public. You have your own page for that project inside Made in Webflow, and you can also make it clonable. So if you go to Made in Webflow, you can actually search for specific kinds of interactions, and you will probably find a lot of free clonables that you can just clone and make your own. Like you can clone the project and you can dive in and explore how the interaction was made, or you can just copy and paste into your own project and reuse it. So that's the best place for you to find good examples of interactions and animations. There's even examples of free clonables using custom code. So there, it's not limited only to Webflow. People do free clonables exploring custom code as well. So make sure to take a look there.
Okay, and maybe we will take this as a last one. What is your design workflow like?
Oh yeah, that's a good question as well. And actually, I have a video on YouTube calling about my not only my design process, but how I break design block in general. And I always go from high level to to detail. So I always start with inspiration. So create a mood board, gathering screenshots and images from things that I like. Collaborate with the client on that part of the project. Once we decide the visual direction, we sit down together, we have a kickoff meeting, and we design a very rough wireframe. So it's just like a collection of boxes on top of each other to define what are the sections for the page, what goes where, what makes sense to go at the top, at the bottom. So that's useful to figure out like priority and thinking about a sequence that makes sense if you're doing like a website that's very engaging and have lots of interactions, how you can plan that. That's where you plan all those things. Then I go to like a mid fidelity prototype, let's say, where I start thinking about the position of the elements, adding some text, moving things around, thinking about the interactions in general, like designing some keyframes for a scroll based interaction, for example, on a storyboard like approach. I do that on that's that part of the process. Then I go to high fidelity. That's when I add colors, I add fonts, I refine things like spacing, putting things on a specific grid design, uh, creating the illustrations, like putting all the things together. And once it's finalized and approved, then I go to Webflow. That's my usual approach for projects in general.
Okay, I believe that was the last one. Thanks a lot, Diego, for the wonderful session today. And thanks a lot, everyone, for making time to attend the session live, or if you're going to see it later on as a recording. And in case if you have missed any of the sessions before, so all the sessions are also there on YouTube. So you can go there, watch them anytime. And the Webflow case series is live now. So for the case, you can check out your emails. You would have received that email and you can start working on the case. You can pick any one out of the three cases that have been sent out. And the deadline for submission is Feb 13th. Any submission made before that are eligible for a certificate, as well as the best ones will be showcased in the demo day. And thanks a lot again, and see you in the next one on Friday.
Thank you, everyone. See ya.